Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hi, and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. We are here with Traci Sorell, children's book author, and we're going to radiate gratitude today. I first heard about Traci's work on NPR, the local affiliate, and I was so interested, I immediately messaged her from my car, and I said, would you please join me on this podcast? Welcome, Traci. I'm so glad to connect with you.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm glad to be welcomed, and I'm looking forward to our visit.
Perfect. All right. So Traci is the author of, I'm sure I'm going to botch the title. Would you please say?
That's all right. Sure, absolutely. It's We Are Grateful, Otsaliheliga, which is how you say we are grateful in Cherokee.
Oh, that's so exciting, because I heard you on NPR. It was just right before Thanksgiving, and it was totally appropriate. So, yeah, Otsaliheliga? Is that right?
Otsaliheliga.
Nice. Okay. So, and tell us, I know your background, but could you just tell us your background and why you've got such an interesting title?
Sure. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I grew up in northeastern Oklahoma, and that's where I currently live. As of a few months ago, like I say, I grew up here, but then I've lived and gone to school and worked other places until the middle of September. I was living in the Kansas City area, and that's why the NPR affiliate there interviewed me for this debut book that I have coming out. But I've since moved back to northeastern Oklahoma, where the Cherokee Nation is located. And I'm excited to be close to all of my family. I have a young son, and so it's nice for him to be around grandparents, aunts, and uncles, as well as the tribe. And so I'm excited about that.
Now, were you raised with the tribe?
Yeah, I mean, we have a 14-county jurisdictional area. So the tribe is spread out over a large geographical area. And I grew up in what's considered like the northwestern corner of the tribal jurisdictional area. Now I currently live just about 30 minutes from the capital, so I'm quite a bit further south than where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. And you're a lawyer.
So. Yes, I did go to law school, although I don't practice anymore, but I did work as a tribal attorney for a while.
Oh, okay, fantastic. And now you're back home and writing books.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was your inspiration for writing We Are Grateful?
Largely, again, kind of being that parent, I've collected children's books for years. I was an avid reader as a child. My mom always told me stories, or she'd read books to me and my brother and sister. But then when I got to be, it's probably an undergraduate, I had a class, and we were talking about the lack of inclusion of mixed race children or children of color in children's literature, and how really white it was. Mm-hmm. And I thought, really? And so I started at that point really looking at picture books and kind of examining them more, like who's in them, and starting a collection of my own, because I thought, well, someday I'm sure I'll be an aunt, and so I'll want to read to my nieces and nephews, not really seeing myself as a parent or anything at that point. That collection has grown, over the years. Once I had my son, I found that I had lots of traditional stories from my own, tribe, the Cherokee Nation, and I had them from other tribes. But I didn't have any that showed contemporary Cherokee people. Like, there were no stories. And I thought, not fiction or nonfiction. I thought, what is this? This is.
Now, are you talking about actual books? Picture books. So there were Cherokee pictures.
So I'm wanting to pull something off the shelf that isn't like First Strawberries or How the Milky Way Came to Be, you know, something that's like, you know, again, a traditional story, which is fine, but we'd read all those. You know, I have a good collection of those. I'm like, where are Cherokee people now? Like, we're still here. And what I found is that we disappear from children's literature. We also disappear from textbooks and classroom lessons after the Trail of Tears. It's like somehow the Trail of Tears happens and we all just died off. I'm like, but there's, you know, all these people, like, we are the largest tribe in the United States. You know, we're the largest native nation. And I would say maybe us and the Zulus are probably the most recognizable tribes in the world. You know, like when you say, like, it's one of those names, like you say, and people always say, oh yes, Cherokee, you know. So I'm thinking, why isn't there a book? So I really wrote it out of that need as a parent and thinking about other, you know, Cherokee parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and expanding beyond that to teachers, you know, librarians. Like, someone's asking about Cherokee people and this is all they have to give them is, you know,
legend,
something that happened, you know. Again, you can bring them books up to like the 1830s. I was like, this is crazy. You know, right. I mean, we're in the 2000s and I have nothing to show. So to my child, I mean, obviously I have stories, you know, of our family and, you know, obviously there's tribal newspaper and we have, you know, a TV program and all these things, but I was like, where's the book?
There's a TV program in Cherokee? So there's a TV program in Cherokee or about Cherokee?
It's called OCO TV, OSIYO TV. You can just type it into YouTube. There's a whole set of programs that comes up. It shows on the public television station here in Oklahoma. But you can buy DVDs of all the seasons. And it's wonderful because there are some Cherokee language, you know, aspect to it. They have young kids. They're teaching Cherokee words too. But there are wonderful vignettes. It's a TV program, you know, and it highlights aspects of Cherokee history, Cherokee culture today. There's all kinds of wonderful stuff in it. So I definitely would encourage anyone to check that out. And they're in 30-minute segments. So the book really came from saying, we have these other things, where's the picture book? And then saying, okay, I don't see anything, I've researched this, I've got to figure out how to write it. And so I joined the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which is an international organization. It's based out of Los Angeles, and there are regional chapters. So there is a Kansas, Missouri region. There's an Oklahoma region. You know, there's and you can then meet up with them. There's conferences. They'll organize people into critique groups, etc. So I started going to some conferences, reading a lot of blogs, books, etc. online, and learning how to write for kids. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm been an attorney, and so I've written legal briefs. You know, I've worked in Washington D.C. I did a lot of advocacy work, so I've written, you know, testimony for people to give to Congress. I've analyzed federal budgets. You know, all these things. Writing for kids is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the most enjoyable, but you have to be so precise with word choice. It has to be so engaging. There is not the ability to have lazy sentences, you know, because kids are so astute. I mean, they will just turn away. Adults, I think, tolerate poor writing better, but kids are like, no, this is awful, or I'm not interested, you know?
Right.
So with this book, it was, like I say, one of those things where I wanted to show our contemporary culture. And so, you know, from the illustrations that Frané Lessac did, you see, you know, it starts in the fall with Cherokee New Year and it goes through the 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. We start from a place of, you know, we're grateful for things about our culture, but also things that happen in daily life that any child, regardless of who reads it, can relate to. Mm-hmm. And those are things that maybe we're happy for, but sometimes we have to be grateful for things that aren't so wonderful.
That's right.
And be the loss of someone in our lives, you know, because we need to recognize that that person is still with us. We still have that love. We still have those memories that we've shared with that person. But also being grateful for things that are difficult in our lives. And maybe that's, you know, a family member that's being called away to serve our country in the armed forces, which is one of the scenes in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Those things help a child not to just build resilience, but also to recognize that when they're sad or there are difficult times, that's how you not just rely on yourself, but you build those connections with family, you build those connections with community, that we all have to help each other through these things. And so I think that that's a message that resonates wide and far. I know for myself, I, especially after having my son, I really got intentional about developing a gratitude practice on a daily basis. Because there were times when I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take like one more day that feels like it's 40 hours long. It's like I've kept him alive, I've kept me alive, but I'm exhausted. And of course then I was an older parent, so I did not have the energy of, the 20 something. And I thought, okay, I need to be really intentional about this. So, anyway, I've just been ecstatic by how the book's been received. I'm thrilled with that. And the best part, though, has been being able to share the book with my son and all these other children. The school is, that's why I wrote it. Be able to go and help children, who are Cherokee to see themselves, and to help other children who are not Cherokee know that we're still here. We're your neighbors. We're your classmates. We live all over the world. We are everywhere. And I don't think that's something that a lot of people, understand. There are, a ton of Cherokees where I just moved from in the Kansas City area, and people there had no clue of that. So it's just trying to add to the existing body of literature that's in children's literature that shows contemporary Native people. We just didn't have a picture book showing Cherokee people. And again, if you look at Frané's illustrations, the children range from blonde hair, blue-eyed to black. That's what Cherokee people look like. That is, and so I wanted to make sure that was reflected in there, because generally, in the trade world, the author and illustrator never discuss anything. The editor is the manager of the process. They buy my words. They hire an illustrator to illustrate her or his, part of the story. And so, but with this kind of a book, because she's not Cherokee, I did have more interaction with her and helped her get, research resources and things that she needed to make the art. But that was one of the things that I said, is that you have to make it look like who we are, because we're dual citizens. We're citizens of the United States, but we're citizens of the Cherokee Nation first. And so we have different, responsibilities coming from that governmental system and how, our community operates and our tribal nation that are different from those of the United States. And so people want to make it a racial thing. It's not a racial thing. It is literally citizenship. And you see that back from early court cases and treaties, et cetera, that when different European colonizers nations came in, they signed formal legal documents recognizing they were dealing with the head of a state of another nation and what legal responsibilities on each side were that played out because of that. So I think it also opens the conversation up beyond just gratitude and how we can all be grateful for things. Again, the book starts in fall with Cherokee New Year and goes through the 4 seasons, but it also helps kids to recognize that there is this modern, tribal nation with a government, people, there's a whole different reality that, again, is not, unfortunately, not going to be taught in their classrooms. And most of their parents and their grandparents have no clue about this, if they're not connected to a tribal nation themselves or live next to one.
Absolutely. I don't know if I had shared with you, but my daughter is biracial, and she's also part Native American. We're not sure what tribe, because she was adopted and there's really no records. Yeah, I'm part Chippewa myself.
Okay.
But I've not really had any affiliation because that's so far removed from this current generation. But
Yeah.
something that, so many Americans, I think, are aware maybe this much of all the history.
Yeah,
And certainly need to be aware of all of it.
It's a travesty because
it is.
What it allows is for people to be sensitized to that these are folks in your community and there are things that are happening to them. I think that's one of the things that we saw with Standing Rock, is that people recognized, first of all, the pipeline was supposed to go up near Bismarck, not as far down as it was. And the people in Bismarck said, oh, no, we don't want the pipeline up here. You put it down, near the reservation lands. And so then it was moved down. But what I found so interesting is that people recognized, it's not just what's happening to them. Like when these are leaks in the pipeline, it's flowing down the Missouri River. I live along the Missouri River. I've got, water that's coming out there. So, Kansas City, people in Kansas City were like, wait, this is going to impact us. It's like, yes, it is. We all are drinking, we're all drawing, water from this. We're eating crops that are being nourished by the water from the Missouri River. Yes, this is not just something that's happening up there. And so I think it's a way for people to recognize that, you need to be aware of what's going on. You need to be supportive of the fact that, Indigenous peoples are looking out for, and these Native nations are looking out for things that impact all of us. And if we're not vigilant about those things, then we all suffer the repercussions of those things. And, we're much more closely related and interconnected than I think most people want to acknowledge some days, or just don't stop and take time to think about. But we truly are, and it's better if we work together on those things and help our children to understand that if you start segmenting, you start leaving people out of the equation. If you wonder why these people in your community aren't being heard, aren't given access, what is the breakdown? How do we all suffer as a result of that? And because we all do, there is a cost there by leaving people behind, by leaving systems behind. Ultimately, it is going to impact you.
Because we are all connected. We are all connected.
We absolutely
and I think for children like your son, like my daughter, people who may be treated as marginalized when they're not with their supportive family, people who look like other, perhaps, I think it's so important for them to have children's books that are representative of them and the people that they know, the other kids that they know, just to have this model of inclusion, this model of, there are other people who look like me who are important because they're in a book.
Right.
We tend to think.
I was just going to say that Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, Rudine Sims Bishop,
Thank you,
has done wonderful work on this. She's a scholar within the field of children's literature. And she talks about how books are mirrors for children. They are also windows into other cultures, worlds, etc. And I think that's important, and people have also added, sliding doors that, it kind of gives you access to places maybe you haven't been. And I think that's very true. If we look at the state of children's literature in 2015, there was a graph that came out, very visible representation, and it showed how white children have, 80% of the market is reflecting them. And there's all these mirrors around them. And then about 12% is animals and dinosaurs and then inanimate objects. And then the other percentages are divided up among the other ethnic groups. And, for Native children, it is less than 1%. So it's about 0.9% of children's books reflect.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's that sense of invisibility.
Yeah.
And if you lack the inclusion where you're not showing, because I mean, our population of Black people in this country, Asian people, Latinx, Native, I mean, those are growing. And we are now, for children my son's age, he's in third grade and younger. I mean, we have a majority minority population. Those kids are not, majority white,
right,
in those grades and younger. And so why is it that we would have children's literature, and I don't mean just children's literature. I'm also talking about teen literature. I mean, if you look at kind of the canon of, which they'll call the canon of literature that, students read like in high school and stuff, it's like, why is it all this stuff that no one, I mean, like things I read in school,
right,
that bear no relevance to these kids now, when it's like, they're updated great fictional books, I mean, I'm not saying, everyone can appreciate maybe some Shakespeare or something in a unit, but I'm talking about, things in American literature. And I just want to go, we can update these things. There are some wonderful books that have been written, in the last 10, 15 years that are way more representative of the reality these kids live in.
Yes.
Wonderful works that have been awarded, that people have looked at and said, wow, so like integrate those into the classroom, integrate those into the home libraries. Mm-hmm. Again, I think it just helps all of us because I don't see the textbooks getting updated in a substantial way anytime soon.
No. And I like your point about keeping the home libraries updated and having these books just be accessible rather than, look, children, here is a book that features diversity, and now we're going to focus on all the other books.
Right.
Have it as part of the canon. That's just part of the stack of books that we bring home from the library or that we have at home.
Yeah. I mean, my son doesn't, I would never say to him, oh, it's Black History Month, so we're going to read all these books, or, right. I mean, the same thing with, November. Oh, it's, National Native American Heritage Month, so we're going to read all these books. No, we read books about everyone all year long.
Right.
Because I don't think that this is segmented, or I guess it's half of September to October is Hispanic Heritage Month, and I think Asians in May, stuff like that. And so it's like, no, this is ridiculous. Okay, so then what does the default then say? I mean, what is the default of acting like that? Then the rest of the year you're supposed to read just about white people? I mean, it's nuts, right? I mean, like everybody should be reading books about everyone all year long. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, then again, that sense of connectivity, of including yourself and everyone else in that larger frame of humanity, the connection to each other grows. And I think also your ability to be grateful for your community grows exponentially, because you have an investment in what is going on. You think about these people around you as part of who you are, that you have seen them in books, you have sympathized, you have cried with these characters, you've laughed with them, and so then when you encounter, other folks in your community, you just go, yes, of course, this is part of my community, instead of this kind of fear of other, or these xenophobic tendencies that I see rearing their ugly heads again and again. And I just want to say, that's not, a sustainable life way. I mean, it's not, propelling us forward as a species. And, on a smaller level, on a micro level, certainly not as a nation, meaning the United States. So I just, hope that through, my writing and encouraging others to share their stories and being involved in the kid world, to kind of keep pushing at that conversation, that the more you try to keep, people out of being able to share stories, the more you sanitize things, make it, like middle class settings, whatever. It's like, you need to have a range of realities represented, because children come from a range of realities. And even if they don't understand and haven't lived those realities, great. There's all kinds of worlds you can explore in a book, whether that's fiction or nonfiction, through a variety of mediums. Maybe it's a graphic novel that gets that message across to a child. Maybe it's a picture book. Maybe it's a prose novel. Maybe it's a novel in verse, which is a novel made up of poems. There's all kinds of things, but there's such richness there that children can experience and connect to and love and enjoy. And I would say the adults around them, as well, could stand to use it. Because, I look again back at the books of my youth, and children's literature, now is insanely better, in terms of having so many more stories than when I was a kid, and I look at like nonfiction. It used to be really kind of like just very dry informational, and what you have now is, people who are really looking at, how do I deliver this information? Again, all factual, they're not fudging information, but presenting it in creative ways. So many kids love expository nonfiction. My son does, he wants to read about all kinds of different things, but not in a dry way. So I mix those books in as much as I do fiction, as much as I do biography, all those things for him. And so I just think that intentionality is a huge part of whether you're practicing gratitude on a daily basis, as you mentioned, whether you are bringing forward a variety of books from the library, talking to your librarian about where are
the other books.
Yeah, exactly. Where is this variety of books along class and race and gender and disability? There's numerous identities that tend to be marginalized and invisible, and that leads to larger societal problems. So I feel like if we work with children at a younger age to bring them along in terms of gratitude, connectivity, community, and fostering that sense of connection, our society as a whole reaps the benefit of having caring, concerned, and committed community members.
Oh, absolutely. So these are pretty big themes that you're tackling in just this one small children's book, which is beautiful. I really encourage everybody to go check it out because it's just gorgeously illustrated. The prose is just beautiful. The words are lovely. The messages are big and all-encompassing. So I really do enjoy what you've done here. And you've packed a lot into this book. And you mentioned that you had some other book in the pipeline. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. But first, let me show you, for those who haven't seen the book. So this is
yes,
of the cover. The actual cover is all these folks at a Cherokee stomp dance.
Oh, how wonderful.
Done at our ceremonial grounds, and it occurs all night. But there's wonderful scenes in here. So since we're coming on...
Yeah, for those of you listening on the audio podcast, you'll have to just go get a book.
Yes.
It's gorgeous. Oh, here's winter.
Yes. So and for every page where there's a Cherokee word, you have the pronunciation guide at the bottom. So you're not kept from being able to say the words yourself. But there are audio files if you want to listen and have someone say the Cherokee word, those are available on my website at Traci, Traci Sorell, Sorell.com. There's a link there. There's an activity guide and free coloring sheets, etc. But yes, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like everything that I'm talking about is just encapsulated in this book. I mean, again, I see this as a body of work. There are many other authors and illustrators who are doing this same kind of work. But certainly it is a theme across the work that I'm doing. And as I mentioned before, I've worked in advocacy, and so I definitely have a social justice, bent and work to my life. And so my book next fall, I actually, this was my debut nonfiction picture book. In September, I'll have my debut fiction picture book called At the Mountain's Base. And it's a 111-word poem. So it's not, so it's more sparse in terms of text. And the publisher has hired a graphics comics artist. So it's wonderful because whereas a normal picture book has a lot of, double page spreads, she takes things and puts things in panels. So there might be one word that's in a panel. And it's wonderful how the text is, how she's taken, because I wondered how this book would be illustrated. I thought, it's so sparse and there's so much packed into each word. How is this going to work? And it's amazing. I mean, just beautiful illustrations. But it talks about a family who is waiting for their family member who's a pilot. She's in battle and they're waiting for her to come home. Oh. So we have, and this is another aspect where, again, I mean, it's a fictional poem, but the majority of people in this country, in terms, meaning the United States, have no idea that Native Americans serve a higher percentage across all branches of the military than their actual percentage of the total population of the U.S.
I did not know.
Very high rates of service. And so with that being said, it's again a way to use a book and bring that to light, to share with children that with all that has been done in terms of treaties being violated, the government creating these boarding schools and taking, our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, putting them in schools, punishing them for speaking their language. They're taken out of a family environment and raised in largely a militaristic type setting. Mm-hmm. All these things, people still are giving to this country. They still are providing service. And so again, it's just another way to illuminate that. And so I've got, like I say, a number of fiction and nonfiction things on the way for the next several years. Wonderful. But it's exciting to, like I say, be able to go and visit with students and bring different aspects of Native life, whether that's Cherokee or not, to their knowledge and awareness. And then during my recent school visits, when I was visiting schools that had high populations of Cherokee kids, that was so much fun because the kids were telling me, they'd point to things, I had a PowerPoint presentation. So I'd have the art from the book and I'm reading through it. And so they're, saying other words that are in Cherokee or talking about how, yes, I get crawdads. And, my family, we played stickball and my family goes out and gets wild onions in the spring. And so there's these things that they're able to see themselves in the book and their family. And that just, gave me so much joy to see that they could see themselves in the book. And then, like I said, kids that don't see it, it was priceless, and so that's why I say I'm glad the book, has been well received with, starred reviews and, has gotten the attention that it has. It got an award a few weeks ago from the National Council of Teachers of English, the Orbis Pictus Honor Award.
Congratulations.
Which honors excellence in nonfiction writing. But I thought, the absolute best part is having a book that a child can go pick up off the library shelf. If it's in their classroom, they can go pick it up and read it, They can have it in their home. That is the best part, is that, knowing and being able to then share it with them and to see those reactions firsthand is nothing's better than that. It never will be. It never will be. So
I have to ask, what does your son think of it?
He loves it. He absolutely loves it. And he was so funny because I just got the Orbis Pictus stickers in the mail this week. And so I put one on the book that I have in his room. And he goes, "Wait, what is that on the book, Mom?" I said, "Well, that's the decal for the award I was talking about." He goes, "I am just so proud of you, Mom." He goes, "I just thank you for writing this book for us." And it's like, yes, that this is why I wrote this book, for you and all these other children. So he's so funny because he's always after me, like, what did I work on today? Which book am I writing for him now? Because, of course, it's all his personal library, And
right.
So he's a good taskmaster. He's a very good taskmaster that way.
Keep you honest.
Yes, he does.
Now, as you were working on the book, did you run things by him to see what his input might be?
Yes. So one of the things that I learned early on in terms of learning how to write for kids is, read what you're writing to children. Certainly picture books are meant to be read aloud. So they need to be read aloud to anyone. But kids are the preferred audience, right? That's who they're, largely aimed at. And so, although I'm a firm believer that picture books are enjoyable at every age, and you can always get something out of them. But if he, lost interest, his eyes, glazed over, he turned his head, whatever, it's like, ooh, I need to work on those couple of words or that phrase, or, there was something there that was not keeping his attention. So he's a wonderful kind of first pass for me in terms of what's working or not working. I read it aloud to myself and I try to tighten it as much as I can, but then he's my second round before it goes out to, critique partners, etc. But with this book, We Are Grateful, Otsaliheliga, I also had the young woman who does the recording of the audio files for the Cherokee words on my website. She graduated from our tribe's language immersion school. Wow. And so she also read every version and gave me feedback, which was wonderful. So I had a slightly older child give that perspective as well. So it helped. It just helps a lot. Yeah.
And speaking of the Cherokee language in your book, something I really appreciate about it is that not only does it have the phonetic spelling, but it has the
syllabary.
Thank you. I was for that word. It's wonderful. As a linguistics major, I just find it fascinating. I didn't even realize that Cherokee is a written language.
Yes. Well, most people don't realize. So this is, for those of you who are online or listening, you won't be able to see this, but in the very back is a copy of the Cherokee Syllabary. And that Cherokee language program helped me. Mr. Durbin Feeling, one of the master linguists, went through and checked the syllabary, made sure I had the right usage for all of that. But Sequoia is the only person that we know of in the world who took a previously oral language and by himself created a written syllabary. So it's not an alphabet, And I always tell this to kids because I said, an alphabet is combining letters to make words. In English, I and A are maybe the two examples of that where they could be standalone words themselves, but everything else has to be combined to be a word. With the syllabary, there are symbols that he created, or characters, and each of those represents a syllable. So on the front of the book, you have the title in English, We Are Grateful. Mm-hmm. Then you have the transliteration or the English phonetics of it. Otsaliheliga. And then you have the Cherokee syllabary of those 6 syllables. Otsaliheliga.
Wow.
And so again, with just these 6, this is an entire sentence. This is 3 words that are combined. This is six syllables, 6 characters. And so when Cherokee people learn the language, they learn those characters, and they learn the syllabary and suffixes and prefixes that go on things to make, different sentences, or maybe it's a word, itself, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's, like I say, in this case, it's an entire sentence. And it's just fascinating. I didn't learn Cherokee as a child. I took it in college. And so I have an elementary understanding of it, and can do some basic conversation. But, the thing that I'm excited about now too is that our tribe, like I say, has a language immersion school. They also offer online classes. There are numerous ways that you can learn the language now that, just didn't exist when I was growing up. And so for my son, I'm just excited that he has the opportunity to do things from a language standpoint, but also from a cultural standpoint that we just didn't have, when I was growing up. So it's nice to come home and to afford him the ability to be connected, not just to his family, but to his larger, tribal community and family through the Cherokee Nation.
Right. That is so exciting. I'm really happy that you have that. Is he doing well in his Cherokee studies?
We're going to be starting after the first year. Like I say, we just moved down here in September. I've been on the book tour. And so that's one of the things that kind of for 2019, I was saying, we're going to get, when they start their online program again, we're going to get him signed up for that. And he and I can work on that together.
Perfect. All right. So I have really appreciated getting to know more about you, about your background, this beautiful book. I cannot stress enough. It is such a gorgeous book. We are grateful. I'm going to try to say it. Otsaliheliga?
Otsaliheliga. Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, I knew I would mess it up. Okay, but We Are Grateful by Traci Sorell, and your website is tracisorell.com, TraciSorell.com. There are a lot of resources on your website. The Cherokee language, there's a beautiful song sung in Cherokee. I think it was Celebrate, right?
Yes.
Yes, by Cool and the Gang.
The Cherokee National Youth Choir has a CD out of all these great, R&B and kind of Motown songs that they sing in Cherokee. And so I was, Frané, the illustrator, Frané Lessac, had asked, she said, I want to make a book trailer. What song do you think we should use? And I was like, easily Celebrate, Celebration by Cool and the Gang. It's one of my favorite songs ever. And they said the Cherokee National Youth Choir recorded it on their CD, which is actually called Celebration. And you can get online at Cherokee Nation Gift Shop and order it if you want a copy. But, they've got like Stand By Me, Lean On Me, all these things they sing in Cherokee, which are it's a beautiful language to hear. It's my favorite language to listen to. And, but if you go on my website, you can hear the book trailer. And so they're singing in the background. It's got the art from the book going by. And then you will hear, like I said, the young woman, Emily Chavez, who is the graduate of our immersion school. She is saying Cherokee words, that appear in the book trailer. So it's a fun thing I like to play at the end of the school visits to get the kids up on their feet, kind of dancing around, shaking the wiggles out. And we have a good time. Plus, I love dancing and singing. But if you listen to when, towards the end of the book trailer, they say Otsaliheliga in the song. Now, if you know the words of Celebration, there is no We Are Grateful in that song. So again, it's one of those things I point out to students, that translation from one language to another does not always sound, you will not get a literal translation word for word. So in talking about celebrating, in that song, how it's translated in Cherokee is also, We Are Grateful. So it's funny because it comes at the time, when we have the artwork in there and it says Otsaliheliga, and then you hear the kids singing that in the background. So it's one of those things I like to point out, that
Awesome.
things get expressed differently in different languages. But, ultimately we are all connected. And that's what I want to do through my work, is show kids the importance of, regardless of what messages they may be getting from adults around them, it's important for them, in their path in life, to see all of the humanity around them, and also, to have themselves reflected, and to be able to see themselves, that's important.
Yeah, so important. Well, again, thank you so much for this beautiful work and for taking the time to meet with me and talk about this. And I just think it's an important message. I truly appreciate it. Good. Well, thank you, Traci.
And I will say in Cherokee, Wado, which is how we say thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to visit with you about the book and to just spend time with you. Wado.
Wado. Thank you.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.